Well, are we live? I think we're live. Okay, everybody. It is Friday. It is a 3-day weekend, Memorial Day weekend, and we are doing live today with Right Wing Insanity Report. I'm tina-desiree Berg, and joining me is Walker Bragman. You know, normally I don't have the same guest on two shows in a row, but we're bringing Walker back this time to do some follow-up reporting on what we discussed last week. Just to give some background, this is about right-wing dark money funding various things, various causes, right-wing extremism, and how they all interweave together, why we should care about these things. Well, when billionaires give money to, white nationalists or anti-vaxxers or, a host of child labor supporters, as we're going to hear about today, it does have a broad reaching effect. It helps to, increase the scope and reach of these groups. So Walker, welcome. First of all, welcome.
Thanks very much for having me. It's good to be back.
It's good to be back. Yeah.
I feel privileged to be on 2 weeks in a row.
Yes, you're the first for that. Right off the top, so Brownstone is one of the groups we're discussing. Can you just give a brief explainer on exactly who they are? So I want to make sure that everybody understands who these organizations are and how they all fit together in this puzzle because it is a little bit complicated. We're going to be talking about financial statements and things of this nature, which can get boring, but we sort of have to understand where we're coming from.
Yeah, this is the Jordan constantly talks about this as like the unsexy work.
The unsexy.
Yeah, it's that's a good way of describing it, I think. So yeah, the Brownstone Institute is a dark money group that was founded by a man named Jeffrey Tucker, who is a longtime veteran of Koch groups that are in Charles Koch's political influence network. That doesn't mean that Jeffrey Tucker himself is funded by Koch. I'm not saying that, but I'm pointing out that he does come from this world of right wing, very libertarian dark money. And so he founded Brownstone in 2021 as what they said is the spiritual child of the Great Barrington Declaration, which requires even more explanation. The Great Barrington Declaration was a document that Tucker helped organize. It was written by three right-wing scientists, or they would dispute. They'd say we're not right-wing, but one of them is Dr. Jay Bhattacharya from Stanford University and the Hoover Institution, another one of these right-wing think tanks, also tied to Koch. One of them is Martin Kulldorff, who is of Harvard Medical School. He's been on leave for over a year. And then another is Sunetra Gupta from Oxford University. They wrote this document called the Great Barrington Declaration at a conference hosted by the American Institute for Economic Research, which was the right-wing libertarian think tank that Tucker was
I'm noticing a
at.
theme here.
Yeah. That also gets a nominal amount of funding from Charles Koch. And the document recommended that governments and scientists reject broad public health measures in favor of focused protection and herd immunity through infection. So focused protection on the vulnerable only.
Right.
And then herd immunity for everybody else. Now,
herd immunity is never going to happen without vaccines, but I'm going to table that for another day.
So they never did any modeling, by the way, to show how this idea would work. They've been very vague about it, and it's not really a scientific document. Really, what the Great Barrington,
it's an economic one.
Right. What it did was it provided an academic veneer to ideas that had been put forward months earlier in the Heritage Foundation's reopening plan. Now, the Heritage Foundation is another right-wing libertarian think tank that is funded by a number of wealthy interests, including Charles Koch. So like that's who it is. That's what this is. So it's a web. Right.
It is a web of dark money, and it's. I'm going to go out on a limb and say most of these guys are anarcho-capitalists. They're right-wing libertarians. They want very, very small government. None of this has to do with public health, politics per se. It has to do with them being able to extract more wealth, and they do that through manipulating the base, manipulating the American public, and they devote a lot of time to this. Okay, so
Brownstone emerges. Jeffrey Tucker found.
Your audio just cut out.
Can you hear me?
Yes, there's back
You
now.
know? Okay. So Tucker founds the Brownstone Institute as a spiritual child of the Great Barrington Declaration. Its mission is to fight back against public health measures put in place in the face of the COVID-19 pandemic.
Okay.
Um, and it has become a
It has become something more.
central hub of COVID misinformation. And it's tied to a lot of prolific misinformers. I mean, Bhattacharya and Kuldorf were fellows, I think, at the or they were fellows or experts that Brownstone like brought on right away. And then I don't think either one of them currently are affiliated with Brownstone. Um, Senior scholars. That's it. Sorry, my
Okay.
fault. My brain just went, you know. In any case, they were brought on right away. Brownstone had ties to Paul Alexander, who famously he was a science advisor to Health and Human Services under Donald Trump, and he's known for saying, we want the kids infected. Um, and yeah, it's just been this central hub of misinformation related to COVID, which is useful to its mission of undermining public health measures, breaking solidarity and calls for greater government intervention in the face of the pandemic. What's interesting about Brownstone to me is that it has this sort of crossover appeal with a faction of sort of disenchanted former left wing people.
Oh, 100%. Yeah.
Yeah, I
Well, they
think
use the right uses wedge issues to try to red pill folks, right? And some of these things have been very effective. All of
yeah
these groups that are sort of anti-establishment for the sake of being anti-establishment, that is an effective argument for them, right? If maybe they at one point supported Bernie Sanders, but they get angry about what the DNC did, rightfully so. There's a good reason to be angry there. Don't get me wrong. But then they're like, okay, screw it, let's just blow everything up. I'm going to go vote for Trump. I mean, there's a lot of anger in the world. It is not being addressed by either political party, and these folks can be easily manipulated because of their anger. I don't necessarily blame the people that are the subjects here, because I think they have valid reasons for being pissed off. I'm more going to place the blame at the feet of government, why they've allowed this, political corruption to fester, why they've allowed right-wing billionaires to, pretty much buy our government and do what they want. Citizens United, I think, is, a big problem here. Obviously, it's hard to trace this dark money. When that passed, these guys were able to buy ever more larger swaths of, our government, on Congress, whatever else.
yeah, there's a lot of anger out there, and a lot of it is justified, and a lot of that stems from government being unresponsive.
Yeah,
But
that
you
was
know,
much more precise.
Brownstone has it's coddled, it's cozied up to like the gray zone types. I think Jeffrey Tucker and Max Blumenthal just did an interview relatively
That's just
recently.
wild to me. Okay.
But yeah, Tucker. A little background on Tucker. Tucker is is an anarcho-capitalist. He's a child labor advocate. He is also, according to reporting by the Southern Poverty Law Center, tied to a couple groups that are neo-Confederate or neo-Confederate leaning. He used to work with Lou Rockwell on Ron Paul's racist newsletter. He's suspected
Wow. I
of
didn't know
being
that. That's new information, really.
he's suspected of being one of the authors of the newsletter.
Hmm.
He has been pretty dodgy about it
Okay.
when in past interviews. Uh, and obviously we can't say if he was one of the authors or not, but he did work with Rockwell for many years. And yeah, so that's who Tucker is, and
Okay.
he sounds almost professorial when he talks. He has an affect, and he dresses. He's got the bow tie, and he dresses in the
Yeah.
like the jackets, and he's very, like you wouldn't necessarily know his extreme views if you just met him and talked to him. And
Okay.
I think that's sort of the goal of people like Tucker is to create an alternative intellectual establishment
Mm-hmm.
to the
Yeah.
mainstream. The problem is that libertarian types don't like to rely on an actual data and modeling. Like their agenda that they're promoting is there's a reason that it's shunned in academia. There's a
Yeah.
reason that it doesn't have a home in mainstream academia. And right-wing capital interests who support this agenda have spent tons of money to
Tons
try
of
to
money.
inject it
Yep.
into credible academic
Huge
institutions.
donations to, schools like Georgetown. There was a controversy a few years back where the Koch brothers gave an endowment to one of the colleges in San Francisco, but it was on the pretense that they were allowed to have hiring say in their professors, which is absolutely
Yep.
unethical and nuts. Should never happen. So yeah, they want to buy academia too, right? They bought the government. Now they want to buy academia. I mean, and it's not just Charles Koch, right? It's Peter or Tucker. It's Peter Thiel. There's a whole host of these guys that are doing this stuff. And their goal is to, shrink government to the point where government is not effective anymore. And once it's not effective, that creates anger because it's unresponsive to the public. And that allows them to have more of a financial free for all. And that's sort of where we are right now.
They
My
want to shrink
concern-
government down to enforcing contracts and protecting wealth. That's all they want.
Protecting wealth, 100%. I agree
Yeah,
with you.
and Tucker is, I mean, he's not like, he's become sort of more influential through COVID because he's
Yeah, it was
taken
a
on
wedge
this
issue. I
this
agree.
fight himself.
Yeah.
And I will say Brownstone, they created they organized this group called that calls itself the Norfolk Group. You'll notice that all of the names, the Great Barrington Declaration, the Norfolk Group, the Brownstone, they sound very grandiose, right? That's sort of to add to this sort of image of a very academic, very thought out, well reasoned. That's sort of the bread and butter of this libertarian movement. I mean, fuck, the Reason Foundation, like
the Reason, yeah.
It's right there in the name.
Reason.
But again, like the Great Barrington Declaration didn't do modeling. They're not they're not reaching these conclusions through study and rigorous research. They're reaching these conclusions because that is the conclusion that the funders of these projects want, and ideologically fits with the people that are willing to say that. I mean, not everybody who's involved in this dark money network is a sellout. They might genuinely believe it, ideologically.
I agree. But the architects of this definitely are. I guess what I want to get at is the architects that are controlling this narrative and putting this out there, creating these webs, right? They know what they're doing. I don't think they're necessarily their ideology is necessarily anything more than I'm a right-wing libertarian and I want to make my billions grow and nobody's going to touch my money, right? And they've been very successful. But all of these folks that are sort of, is puppet a good word for that? That are just kind of in the mix here. They might have different beliefs, ideals, whatever, and not even understand what's happening around them, I think.
Mercenaries, there's no shortage of mercenaries in politics, particularly on the right. Let's be real. But
that's fair.
So the Norfolk Group. This was a group of scientists from it was two of the Great Barrington Declaration authors. It was Kulldorff and Bhattacharya, and several signatories of the Urgency of Normal Toolkit, which was a misinformation-ridden toolkit for parents to fight against COVID mitigation measures in schools, put out by a number of experts who were not really qualified to talk about the harms of child development, but did so anyway. Again, this provided an academic veneer to a war that right-wing groups had been fighting for a while at that point when that came out. Not that there's necessarily a direct connection. It's just that it happened to come out at a time when right-wing groups were fighting against school mitigation measures, and experts come in to fill a need. Anyway, so the Norfolk Group put out this blueprint for a congressional investigation into the pandemic response. And that blueprint made a bunch of recommendations that mirrored Heritage Foundation recommendations in a similar blueprint released weeks earlier.
So my question is whose response? Trump's or Biden's or both?
Both. The goal of the inquiry that's going on now, there is an inquiry. It is playing out in Congress. The goal is to take off the table for future pandemics the mitigation measures that we use to combat this pandemic.
Because they're expensive.
They're expensive. They are disruptive to the economy. And if your main concern is your portfolio, you probably don't like the fact that businesses were ordered to close for a period of more than, like a period of weeks. And early on, like that was incredibly disruptive. Those were state level decisions, but the goal is to get people into state, take any mandates off the table federally and get people elected who will not implement those policies at the state level. Actually, there are also lawsuits going on to ban such actions at the state level. Those lawsuits are being fought by right-wing groups, including the New Civil Liberties Alliance, which is a Koch-funded litigation outfit. We are seeing a pattern here. I'm not saying that Charles Koch is masterminding this whole thing. He's certainly one of the wealthy interests who is doing so. But and in fairness, I do have to bring this up, that there was a recent report, Lessons from the COVID War, that came out that Koch funding went into, and it's not like this extreme libertarian thing. Like it is a good document from all the reporting I've read, and I just got it myself, so I'm going to read through it. But that is in line with sort of what Koch does. It funds a bit of everything. Yeah. But when you look at his political groups, what are they fighting for? And what were they were fighting
small
the whole
government.
Time.
No regulation, deregulation,
exactly. Reopen America, get everything back to normal. Let the virus rip. Yeah. So yeah, Brownstone is influential in that it's working with the Republican Congress, ostensibly working with the Republican Congress through its Norfolk group. The first experts that the COVID committee hearing had were members of the Norfolk group, which was organized by Brownstone. So you see the relationships, the overlap. So while it is a fringe little,
they have influence.
They do have it. They have more influence now than they would otherwise. If the Republican Party weren't so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I got you. All right. So before we get into the you were leaked, let me say this. You were leaked some messages, documents. We're going to get into those with your new article. Before we do that, though, Colin, we have a couple of super chats. Everybody, don't forget to smash the like button. That helps this get seen a little bit more. And also, we're having a member drive this week. So if you're not a Status Coup member, please consider becoming one. This is how we fund our on-the-ground reporting. We had Lewis just recently into East Palestine. I will be going back to Atlanta, Georgia at the end of the month to cover the Cop City story a little bit more. So this is how we fund it, right? It costs us money to be out there to pay for the hotels. Also, our gear, our live stream gear costs money, whatnot. So please consider becoming a member for $5 a month if you can. So we have a couple of, Colin, can we put up our super chats? Wanted to thank, I know we've got, all right, Ariana. Hey, Ariana, how are you? Love Fascist Watchdog Hour with Tina. Well, thank you so much. I know that we're a smaller show on Status Coup, but we're growing. Jordan and I talk about this. This work is really important. There really isn't anybody else covering some of the right-wing insanity that we're seeing that is absolutely growing. It's not shrinking, it's growing from a progressive perspective. So, and it's something we do have to pay attention to. So thank you for that. We appreciate it. Robert Pouquet Ray. This channel's reports are incredibly important, covering the poisoning of the earth, the human body, and our basic humanity. $10. Thank you so much, Robert. We appreciate that. Also, if anybody has questions for Walker, please feel free to drop those. And then we have a new member, Sylvia Arnold. Thank you so much. So during our member drive, another new member. So we appreciate that, guys. We are only supported by you. We do not have corporate sponsorship. And that is what allows us to do the kind of reporting we want to do. All right. So having done that, let's turn now to Walker. Let's turn to your new piece, because in it, so my understanding, you can give us a little bit of background on this. My understanding is based on your previous reporting that we talked about last week, somebody reached out to you and leaked these things. Is that about right?
I'm going to be very cagey about
protect your source.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I'm going to be very cagey about how I obtained these.
You know what? You don't even have to say anything further. That's fine. You have them. Let's just get into what they are.
There was no illegal activity. I want to just put that out there. There's nothing illegal about it. But
you didn't pull a Watergate?
I'm gonna be very cagey about it. How I got these emails,
All right. As long
but
as you
I
didn't
got
pull a
these
Watergate.
emails.
As long as you didn't did you bug their offices? No.
If you saw some of the responses, I think I included them in the piece from
Yeah.
Brownstone
Well,
folks.
let's get into that.
You would
Yeah.
think so. You'd
You
think.
would think so. They're a little upset, I think. All right,
Um,
so let's skip down to some of the actual, since we've already been talking about Brownstone and who they are. Let's skip down to this first one, Thursday, March 16th, 2023. This is an email from Jeffrey Tucker. We're not going to say who it's going to. We're going to, protect the person that is going to. But let's read this. The law these days makes an exception for family businesses, farms, child actors, wreath makers, which is so strange. And he actually
thought
says,
so
I
too.
don't understand. He says, I don't understand that one. I'm like, all right, neither do I.
Admittedly, of everything he said, that makes I'm with him on that. I don't get it, but whatever. It was a different time, obviously.
Right. So if you are a famous kid in Hollywood making movies, you are free to work. No exploitation there. Actually, Jeffrey, it is not that simple, but we'll table that for another day. This is why the handmade soap industry took off. It was all about parents trying to find some kind of business they could do in their homes that actually got the children doing something valuable. Oh my God, that's so painful to read. So yeah, it's really true. I would fully repeal the 1936 child labor law. It is cruel and robs kids of a good life. Are you fucking kidding me? I got around.
Let's just give some important context,
All
if you
right.
will, to this email. So Tucker had been complaining about how his Wikipedia page made him sound like a freak, basically. Yeah, like he said, it makes me sound like I'm insane.
Well,
This is now to all those prospective Wikipedia editors out there, be a real shame if any of this made it onto Tucker's page. Just throwing it out there. I am 100% not encouraging prospective Wikipedia editors to go to Jeffrey A. Tucker's Wikipedia page and
add his
note
stance
his
on child
extreme
labor.
views on child labor.
Wow,
In the wake of this report. I am not saying that. In any case,
I mean,
he was upset about his Wikipedia, and people were engaging him on that and saying, like, you're being targeted. I think Debbie Lerman, who's a writing fellow, piped up and said, you're being targeted by I don't remember her exact words, but basically the government is what is sort of what she believes, at least what I understand.
The glowies are after
that she
him.
believes. Yeah. And he says, my favorite thing is that people or like people try to paint me as a child labor advocate and say I favor cigarette smoking. And like, then he proceeds to basically admit that he's a child labor advocate who favors youth cigarette smoking.
Amazing.
Yeah,
I mean,
no, it's wild. It is just
how could he
wild
possibly think that it is cruel and robs kids of a good life to like be going to school instead of be working in a factory for 12 hours? This is insane.
This guy wants to take America back to like the late 1800s. That's and in fact, the Brownstone Institute, he named it because brownstone was a common building material before the steel age. Like that, he named it that for that reason. This is the time period he wants. He wants kids, cheap labor. The whole point of child labor in the first place.
It's cheap labor. Yeah, they can't suppress adult wages anymore. That's where this is coming from, right? They've already spent 4 decades now suppressing adult wages to the point where there's just no more runway left there. They can't do that anymore. So now these right-wing libertarians are like, okay, where do we get cheaper labor? What do we do now? Oh, let's bring back child labor. Why don't we just exploit 15-year-olds, 12-year-olds? It's fine. We can sell it as this idea that it's good for them and it builds character and that we're robbing them of not being able to make money, and that's awful. Like, it's insane.
Yeah,
it's insane.
No, it's wild. And I will say also, the pandemic saw people drop out of the workforce and leave dead end jobs that they didn't feel
they didn't like, right?
Yeah, they didn't like them, and why risk it? And government programs like stimulus checks, like expanded unemployment assistance, like the student debt repayment freeze and the eviction moratorium enabled that.
people to
And
have a
so,
better life. These are things that
right,
they should
for
just
the
have normally all the time, in my opinion. But
yes, and we saw uh, labor really get have more leverage in the
yeah,
pandemic than it's had
in a long
in
time.
decades, and companies responded by increasing wages, right? So when you and this is I will admit this is an angle that I did not consider when I was writing this piece, is that the wage issue here is pretty important. I focused mostly on the long COVID aspect, that there are still a lot of people who are out of the workforce, and that's because of
Yeah.
speculated to be because of long COVID. Um, and one of the solutions here is bring in child labor, but the wage aspect, you brought it up, and you're absolutely right. Wages are a major issue here. So Tucker uh, definitely definitely supports child labor.
Yeah. Clearly he
Let's just be
does.
real. We can go through his emails, but he definitely supports
Wait.
child labor.
Yeah.
He ends up sharing a photo of St. Louis newsies smoking
Right.
tobacco. That photo was taken by Lewis Hine, and Hine said, he said that child labor is really about extracting labor without paying for it. So like that.
100% it is. Like, and trying to frame it as something else. I mean, let's finish the email just so everybody gets a clear idea. He goes on to say, well, I would fully repeal the 1936 child labor law. It is cruel and robs kids of a good life. I got around the law with a job at 12, tuning church organs, but these days is much more difficult. We condemn the kids to a life of desk sitting, only allowing them remunerative work at the age of 16. Just they have skills full of useless stuff. So school is now useless. Seriously, dude. So you have people entering the workforce at the age of 24, never having been in a job. They immediately sue their employers for discrimination or whatever. What is he talking about? That what?
Well, this brings up a couple of gripes that the Brownstone folks have. One of them is with formal education. You start to
They
see
think
it
that's
here.
bad.
Yeah, they think formal education is bad. Public school, I mean, really,
It's creating
they
too
don't
many atheists. What?
they don't like the idea of public education, formal education. I
Right,
mean,
right.
there's a video that Tucker did where for this libertarian school sucks project, where he's saying like, don't get put in a box and don't let essentially saying that teachers are dictators in class and kids are forced to sit there, and they could be doing something productive and enriching. And in his 2016
Learning to read and write isn't productive. I mean, I'm having a
in
hard time
his
understanding.
well, this is the disdain for academia that you see, right? Like they want to create their own version of academia. In a way, it's kind of like bizarro academia, right?
Yeah, hang
like
on a second,
it's
Walker. Hang
off.
on.
It's like you've
It's
watched The Nightmare Before
bizarre.
Christmas, right?
Yeah, but hang on. Let me backtrack on something here because I need to understand something. What's bizarre to me about this is the insinuations of what he's saying is that we should have an entirely uneducated population, but the country is in deep need of more educated people in the workforce, right? So right now we're giving out visas to folks that have better skills because they come from countries where you can get PhD without paying tuition, whatnot. I mean, again, table that for another day. But point being is that we don't have adequately educated folks in certain areas in our workforce. So how is he making that all make sense, right? I mean, I do think
They
trade
want
school.
private alternatives. They don't like public education, and then they want elite academia
Right, but then that kid
to
is
be
like
they
never
want to
getting a job. He's how does that circumvent
but they
his
don't
like
care about
point?
they don't
They
care
don't.
about that. They care about
Am I
wealthy
trying to plot
kids.
too much logic here?
Yeah, of course. They care about they care about capital, very wealthy people. Their kids are going to be fine. Their kids are going to go to
forget about the
schools.
kids that
But
haven't worked till
the,
the 24. We're talking about kids that will never work.
the version of what they want is to create an alternative establishment. In a way, it's like The Nightmare Before Christmas when the Halloween town tries to do Christmas.
Yeah.
That's the libertarian right wing trying to
Yeah.
do academia. Like it doesn't work. It's not this. It's not the same. It's not the real thing. It's hollow. There's something perverse about it. And
It just doesn't make sense. Like
Yeah,
he's
and it's not even a
crazy.
good faith. It's not, the
It's
difference
not a
is
good
it's
faith
not a good
argument.
faith
Yeah.
effort
All
to
right.
even try. But yeah, Tucker and the Brownstone folks in this email exchange, some of them are talking about public education and how it's really bad, and it's a consistent, thread for him. He in 2013 he put out this video where he's trashing public education. They really, they only want they want people working. They think the only thing of value that somebody can do with their time is make money.
Right.
That's, or try to make money.
Oh yeah, here's the photo. Colin, can we put up some more of these emails that Walker is talking about? There's the one there about, you're right, the Wikipedia where he's really upset.
Oh, can I? There's
Your
somebody in the chat
Wikipedia.
who asked.
Oh yes.
I'm curious if you've asked Jeffrey to discuss this. I sent Tucker a
Yes.
press inquiry, and he has
already
not
know that's a yes.
responded to my press inquiry. He didn't respond to the last couple I sent him either. The pattern here that I find is that when I reach out to people with inquiries, they either don't get back to me and then sort of lament the fact that the article came out in the first place, or they'll send me something totally insane.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
And we get some of that. We should talk about that, because you got to see some of the responses that I got to very simple questions.
Yeah. No, I feel that. I've gotten some crazy responses too. So this one here, your Wikipedia page is not being attacked by rando lay people who happen to think you're a Koch-funded neo-Confederate QAnon follower. It is the National Security Biosecurity Network that is trying to discredit you in the eyes of anyone from the MSM bubble who might otherwise be interested in reading, engaging with your writings, and Brownstone. As my husband has said and asked me to pass on to you and any interested Brownstonians, even though I know Wikipedia is crap, it's often the first thing that comes up when I'm researching something and the first thing I look at. So if it says someone or some organization is ultra right-wing, Koch-funded, that immediately plants a seed of distrust in my mind that I admit is hard to get rid of. Well,
follow your instincts. He's look, that is, I want to stress, by the way, that is a Brownstone writing fellow. That is somebody that Brownstone is
interesting.
Has an official formal relationship with.
And are they in denial of the connection? What's going on there?
What do you mean?
With Koch money.
Oh, well, so we don't know who is actually funding Brownstone.
Okay.
And I've covered Brownstone's funding. 9 large donations make up most of the revenue that Brownstone took in 2021, which is when it came into being.
So are they inter-Koch related networking, like Donors Trust, or like how is that happening?
We don't know who is behind any of this money. I've been looking through 990s trying to find it. My report basically just said it's 9 large donations, the largest of which is $600,000, which represents half of their revenue from 2021. So we don't know. We do know that Tucker has this history. He's well connected within this world of right-wing dark money. He worked for groups that were funded in part by Koch. So he has these relationships, but we do not know who funds the Brownstone Institute. We just know that it is being propped up by large donations.
Of dark money. Okay.
9 large donations.
Who is listed? Is it blank, or is there a listing of some organization?
Blank. And next year, it's possible that we won't even know the breakdown. This is a very opaque group. They have an interest in secrecy. Brownstone on his website says that it will not disclose who is funding it. And this is how our politics work today.
That's terrible.
These terrible. Groups, nonprofits are not required to disclose who is funding them. They are publicly. They are not required to disclose the amount of donations publicly. It's incredible that Brownstone did. I give them credit for at least doing that much. Yeah. We at Opt Out, at the Opt Out Media Foundation, we are completely transparent about who funds us. where our funding comes from, and
As it should be.
as it should be. But yes, this is the problem with our campaign finance system today. In any case, yeah, it's this person, Lerman, is a writing fellow for Brownstone, and as you'll see as we go on, has been quote unquote investigating me and opt out in apparent retaliation for my reporting on Brownstone.
Yeah, and your response to him is like, "Have at it."
Basically, yeah.
There's nothing hiding there.
But Lerman thinks that I'm connected to this censorship industrial complex or whatever. Thinks that I'm connected to the national security state or something.
Whatever, yeah.
That, and you see that in that email. That's, these people that are doing this are the biosecurity, national biosecurity apparatus. Like, what?
I don't even know what that means. I don't know. Is that
supposed
to be?
It's so kooky.
It's kooky. All right. So now, related to this week, let me ask you this: is there anything more to add to that you think is important before we move on to the VDARE aspect of this?
Oh yeah.
Go
through. There was another response. That,
okay.
The responses that I got, because I think it's important. It's important not only to know that this group of people largely agree with child labor. In fact, one of the names that comes up in this conversation is Jennifer Say. She is a self-described reopen schools mom. One of these people who came out very heavily against school closures and later masking, saying that they cause harm to children. She was a top Levi Strauss executive before departing the company over her advocacy against school closures and stuff.
So this is
she comes out and praises Tucker's child labor article.
So hang on, Colin, let's put this up so we can show her response. This is the KYN. That's her.
Kindfin? Yeah.
Kindfin, okay. Wasn't sure how to respond. Let's bring it up so we can read it. That's what you're talking about, right?
You have to see this. Yeah, you have to see this in full. This is the weirdest response I've ever gotten to any press inquiry ever.
Okay. Colin, you can put the article up. Hang on. We'll wait for it so people can read. There we go. It's at the very end. Scroll. Oh
yeah, there you see Jennifer Say, who's a warrior on behalf of children, saying like, "Yeah, Jeffrey, your article about advocating for child labor is actually really good." School closures are bad. Masking kids is bad, but working them in factories and processing plants
around dangerous chemicals and machinery is good. Like, make it make sense.
It doesn't. But here's the response. This is what we're dealing with here.
Are you gonna read it?
No.
You want me to read it in my my Kinfin voice? All right.
You should read it.
Oh, sure.
I'd be all
right. Ready? Oh, sure. I'd be happy to elaborate, but I have a tit for tat system. You don't get something for nothing. I want to see someone else's private emails before I give you more information about mine. Something actually exciting, like private communications between government officials and corporations, showing the extent of regulatory capture, corruption, revolving door government, and misuse of public funds. And it has to be something you got access to yourself, not something that's already out there. No cheating. Then I will write a story about that, which will probably be way more exciting than whenever you're writing. And in exchange for your troubles, I will give you more fodder for your high school newsletter gossip column. That's it now. You can get something for nothing. Pay up.
So
wait, this is actually what she said to you?
This is a real response. This is what she said in a response to my press inquiry.
So hang on a second. She brings up regulatory capture, corruption, revolving door government. These are things that we discuss regularly on the show. They're all a problem. Does she not see that she's engaging in that herself? I don't understand. Is she accusing you of doing that? What's happening here?
No, I don't know what this email is. I just it blows my mind that somebody typed this up,
right,
and then thought, yeah, and clicked send. It's
amazing,
weird.
It
sounds like she's saying, find a different story and give me your reporting, and then let me write a story about it, and then we can talk. That it sounds like you gotta do work for me, and then I'll talk. Like, what? it's just this whole the whole thing is bizarre. The Brownstone Institute is just it's filled with this kind of mentality, like people who would think that typing that up and sending it in response to a press inquiry is a good idea. I don't know.
Walker, it's almost good as the guy that, remember when I was doing the ghost gun story and the guy actually emailed me back and I was really polite, like giving him an opportunity to, explain why he was selling illegal ghost gun parts on eBay. Like his response was, "Are you a Jew?" I was like, "What now?"
It's just like this. I want to stress though, this group has influence. Like they fed experts to Congress. This isn't, it's funny.
Money has influence, it's part and parcel, right? Money has influence. So yeah, 100%.
Like these people are they're sharing like Robert F. Kennedy Jr.'s like anti-vaccine links to his anti-vaccine group. They're talking about like unfounded conspiracies, saying I'm tied to like the national security state. Like they're
which is
sending
hilarious.
responses like that. Like this is not, these people are so out there. The fact that this group has any influence at all is really troubling.
Well, I think it's a sign of the times. A lot of these folks are very insular in these echo chambers, and I don't think they realize how insular, right? Until kind of something in reality smacks them. We have another super chat I wanted to put up. Sasha's phone. Thank you, Sasha. $20. We appreciate that. If it wasn't someone else who thinks same would have written these emails. If it wasn't him, someone else who thinks same would have written these emails. Sorry, I got that wrong. It's a problem with the system, not individuals. Don't try to understand or moralize them. Great reporting helps us understand the system to act. I agree. That's true. I'm always trying to have understanding of reason of individual things that make no sense. I need to let that go. You're not wrong, Sasha. Thank you for the $20. We appreciate that. People, yes, if you have questions for Walker too, please feel free to drop them in the chat. We will get to them. All right, so I think that's everything then, right, on the Brownstone Institute? If so, I want to move over to this donors trust.
I have. I have asked him directly. He's had multiple opportunities to.
Oh, you're talking about Jeffrey Tucker? Yeah, I know.
Take represented. Like, I don't know what else to do. I don't have his number.
You can't force him.
No, you can't force that. You can't force somebody to respond. And frankly, his words in these emails, they do speak for themselves. He sent the photo of these smoking child
we can
workers.
Put that up.
And said these kids look happier than kids today. Like this is a firm.
I mean, these kids seem happier than kids today. They're getting cancer at the age of 12 and working really hard. What is he talking about?
They're smoking to suppress their appetites because they're
hungry.
A lot of these kids are hungry and
they're underpaid. They're from poor families. Yeah, it's gross.
I mean this is like part of a series of photographs by Louis Hine to expose the cruelty of child labor in this country. And it's in part because of those photographs that we ended child labor in the first place. These guys want to bring us back to a time period where capital can exploit people into their into childhood. Like that is not, we as a country, we have moved beyond that. We agreed that wasn't something we were going to tolerate. But we still have, there are elements of that still alive today, and in fringe groups like Brownstone, which, also, there's one other thing that we've missed about this that I feel we should talk about because I think you'll get a kick out of it, and that is the story that Tucker told everybody about his son and cigarettes.
I missed that.
Tucker admitted in this that he said the smoking issue I do it is a little different for me. He admits that he bought his son cigarettes in high school to keep him away from marijuana, and then his son sold the cigarettes to his classmates, and according to Tucker, the whole school was swept up in coughing fits, which he says is unfortunate. And then says that thankfully my son saved me from getting arrested by bribing witnesses with cigarettes. Yeah. That's
Also, how does smoking cigarettes stop you from smoking marijuana? I don't understand that connection. That's kind of strange.
this is just the mind
Okay.
we're dealing with.
All right. Moving on. All right. So, the next story we want to talk about, but before we do, I think we need to have a conversation about Donors Trust, who Donors Trust is. Donors Trust. There's two. There's the Donors Trust
And Donors Capital Fund.
Capital Fund is so those are the two entities. Basically, this is the favorite vehicle of Charles Koch to give money, also other billionaires too. So it's a nonprofit organization, and you'll see them listed. You'll see their grants that they list, like go to lots and lots of people. But I don't know that you can actually match up each donation that is given to each grant that is given, right? And I think that's the entire purpose of this, is to keeping that dark money sort of hidden.
They're donor advised funds. So what you would do if you're a wealthy donor is you would set up an account with this donor advised fund, and you'd give them money, and they would manage that account. That money is then legally theirs to spend, but you would tell them sort of what you want them to focus it on, and then the fund would give the money. It's a way of separating your identity from the things that you want to fund. So when you see Donors Trust gave X amount of money to whatever group, we know that donors gave, it comes from a donor, but we don't know who that donor is.
We don't know which one per se, but we know that it's a handful of very wealthy individuals. I think half of the fund is actually Koch money, if I'm not mistaken. In fact, Colin, can we bring up not the VDARE received grants, but the Who is Donors Trust, the dark money ATM. This would be just a good sort of background information for folks so they understand a little bit more about how this works. This is work done by exposed by CMD, which is, they do great work in this. David Amarak is the writer here, and he's been researching Koch money, also CNP money, like for a long time, and he does a very good job at that. So I highly recommend his website. Check it out if you have an interest in this area. But this piece is a little bit about who Donors Trust is. The preferred donor conduits of the Koch political network, Donors Trust and Donors Capital Fund, distributed $188.3 million in grants in 2020, $137 million of which was sent to litigation centers, advocacy groups, media outlets, extremists, gun rights groups, climate deniers, and other tax-exempt organizations that make up America's right-wing infrastructure. The $137 million in grants distributed is $47 million more than Donors Trust and Donors Capital Fund gave for these efforts in 2019, a 52% increase. Donors Trust IRS filing details $360.2 million in revenue in 2020, with a staggering $158 million coming from one identified person, 44%. The combined assets for the two donor advised funds now tops $619 million, according to the filings obtained by CMD. So anyway, this gives you an idea of how much money they are. If you'll scroll down, you'll see a list of recipients. The largest recipient was Leonard Leo. Yes, that Leonard Leo, the 85 Fund, formerly the Judicial Education Project. So obviously they've been giving a lot of money into getting the SCOTUS judges in place that we have today. Scroll down further and you'll see the Center for Individual Rights, Constitutional Defense Fund, the Federalist Society, one that everybody knows about, New Civil Liberties Alliance, one that you had mentioned, et cetera, et cetera. Right? So that's just a little bit of background on them. So now I want to go to this VDARE's real estate deals may cost nonprofit status. Okay, so first of all, let's talk about who VDARE is. This is Peter Brimlow's organization and website. It is 100% white nationalist. I think some of their content's pretty close to being Nazi. I don't think that would be an extreme position to take. So, but they have been sort of on the fringe for a while now, but they just got this large cash infusion from Donors Trust this past year. So let me see. Let's read this.
I want to say my colleague at OptOut, the co-founder of OptOut, Alex Koch, is an award-winning money and politics reporter, and he's done excellent work on funding of hate groups in this country.
I should have him on the show.
You should. He's one of the I think foremost experts on this topic in the country. Definitely worth talking to. He is way more qualified to talk on this story than I am, but I'm happy. Obviously we're going to talk about it.
Well, we got you now.
Yeah, you got me. It's
We'll
not.
have Alex on too.
You should.
So
You should. I'm
this
like the pinch hitter here.
is the pitch. Yeah. So this, I mean, but I think the point being with you, what I'm trying to tie together is that there's this whole network of dark money that comes from very wealthy right wing billionaire and caps, and that they are using this money to fund,
Hate.
kind of scary things like hate, right? So the VDARE Foundation, and another nonprofit based in New York that leading white nationalist activist Peter Brimlow founded in 2008, purchased the castle for $1.4 million in February 2020. This is a castle that is in West Virginia. Let's see. The foundation serves as an umbrella organization for VDARE's website, which it claims is a nonprofit journalistic outlet, but consists of anti-immigrant white nationalist posts. The hate group used donations for the purchase, according to the court documents. Public tax filings known as 990s. 990s are very telling. This is where we can see where these donations, who's making these donations. Show VDARE's donations soared from $500,672 in 2018 to, wait for it, $4,258,309 in 2019. That is a massive, massive jump. Donors Trust, a nonprofit used as a dark money ATM for certain charities, donated $1.5 million to VDARE in 2019. Donors Trust 990 shows. According to documents in the lawsuit docket, VDARE deeded the entirety of the castle property to two entities, a nonprofit called the Berkeley Castle Foundation and a for-profit limited liability company called BBB. BBB paid VDARE $310,000 for its section of the property according to the deed. Okay, so just right off the top, Walker, what benefit? So obviously we can see the real genuine economic benefits of these guys donating to groups that will help their economic interests, right? So it's helpful for these massive robber barons if child labor laws went away. It's helpful for them if they have more tools with which to suppress wages. We can see the real economic benefits of them giving the donations to these kinds of groups, right? VDARE, I think, is another bridge, and it is a bridge much further. Why would they be funding a white nationalist organization?
So I want to say before I answer this that hate in this country is endemic. It has a long and bloody legacy that is not simply rooted in economics. That said, having established that, we should recognize it. Oftentimes we have this when we talk about, hate in America. There's a conversation that springs up like, well, if everything were just better economically for everybody, we would have less, this would go away. And I think that
it wouldn't go away. It mitigated. I think
it might be a release valve for some of the pressure, sure, but hate in this country isn't going anywhere simply by economic action alone. You have to attack it culturally, and you have to, educate hate away. In any case, wealthy interests funding hate in this country, I think, has a deliberate purpose beyond simply that they share the ideological view, which admittedly some or many of them do. I think wealth in this country, if you look at it, looks the way that it does. Some of these wealthy families look the way that they do because of systemic white supremacy.
Oh, 100%.
Absolutely. So, it's not purely an economic motive, but we have lived through 4 decades now of neoliberal dominance in Washington, the chipping away and erosion of our government, of services and means testing, more barriers to receiving aid, fewer barriers for making money. For the very rich. That, I think, is how you define this moment. And after 4 decades of it, I think people are starting to catch on that, hey, maybe the rich should be paying more, and maybe handing stuff out to wealth is not trickling down. Maybe I deserve a bigger piece of the pie. And obviously, when you have scapegoats for that, you can point to distract people and say, hey, look over there. It's not the wealthy that are causing your problems. It's trans people. It's immigrants. In the case of VDARE, it's immigrants. And you give people another enemy. So I think that it serves a couple purposes for wealth. One, it acts on prejudice, right? It's a deliberate, assault on people based on personal bias and hate. On the other side of it, it's also convenient. There's also the tie-in with an economic aspect of it as well. Scapegoats distract.
Yeah.
It's the most cynical
wars,
move you can pull in politics.
It's very cynical.
Scapegoats distract.
Yeah. I don't disagree. Every system of racism in this country has had an economic component. I don't think that that's a crazy thing to acknowledge, right? Whether it's Jim Crow laws, whether it's slavery, whether it's the redlining of mortgages. The reason there's such a wealth gap is because of these things, right? White families, wealthier, older white families, they pass their houses, down to their children. That's something you can't play catch up on unless
deliberate efforts to prevent.
That's exactly right.
Absolutely.
So,
you're right.
That's sort of what I'm getting at. So I do think. But I guess what's really shocking to me that in 2023, right? So we've done so much to try to, change the course of those things. We haven't done enough. I am actually a strong believer that reparations should be paid. I'll table that for another day. But I do believe...
I agree with you. It'll never be enough. But it'll never be enough. We are living this history. I mean, we think about it as so long ago, right? Like the really bad stuff happened so long ago, but it's still happening.
We
still see the same trends.
It's getting worse again. So I guess, I'm just wondering, I guess, what in their mind is, do they feel that they're protected because they're using donors' trust and they can sort of hide who this money is? Is it Coke? Is it Teal? Is it who, which wealthy guy is giving what money to who, right? We don't know. But, is it very cynical to believe that because they can hide that, they feel more emboldened to do it? Because I think it's obviously if this came out that they were doing this, it would be very toxic for their brand. Even though right-wing extremism is on the rise in the country and there's a lot of hate out there, I still think to most normal Americans, hate is a very toxic thing, and that they would be shocked if they found the guy that makes their toilet paper that they buy is giving money to, a legitimate white nationalist group. They might find that offensive. So I'm very puzzled that they would be as bold as, even though it's hidden, there's a way. Somebody might leak something. Anybody wants to leak that, please? DMs are open. If you work there, let us know whose money this is. But I do think it's a rather bold move, Walker, and I was a little bit surprised by it.
Yeah, I think that look, the identity being concealed absolutely allows people to sort of, it's kind of like the privacy of the voting booth, right? Like you're right. Nobody can hold you accountable. Yeah. Nobody's going to know who it is. And that's absolutely the purpose. I saw in the comments, somebody said they have to go mobile. If you download the opt-out app, you can still listen while you're on the go.
Oh, that's right. Yes.
Yeah, it's available. There's a live stream.
We are on opt-out. Yes. I don't know if folks know this, but we are part of the opt-out network now. So if you have that app, you will get all our programming on opt-out. So yeah.
Yeah. So if you look, at the bottom, there's the live stream section, and there is this wonderful live stream. So yeah, the opt-out app. It's opt-out, then space news. It'll come right up on iOS and Android.
Fantastic. All right. So
and all the views go to you guys. We don't get anything out of it. It's just, if you use the app, great. It's giving views to the outlets that we work with.
There it is. Yeah, there it is. Great. All right. So another thing I wanted to, moving on from the dark money, I wanted you on, Walker, to talk about this stuff because you're an expert, I think, on this. I'm hearing that Alex, your partner, is also, so we'll have him on the show too. I want to talk about some other things as well. Hopefully you're game for this. The Oath Keepers, Stuart Rhodes, has now been sentenced 18 years. So he's had the longest sentence. He's been convicted of sedition. I wanted to have a little conversation on this because I think it's an important thing that happened this week. Let's first look at the NBC article, and then I want to play a video of Stewart, of our friend Stewart. All right, so the founder of the far-right Oath Keepers has been sentenced to 18 years in federal prison in connection with the January 6th attack on the Capitol, following his conviction on seditious conspiracy. The sentence for Stewart Rhodes is the longest imposed on a January 6th defendant to date. In a politically charged speech in the courtroom just before his sentencing, he called himself a political prisoner and said that when he talked about regime change in a phone call with supporters earlier this week, he meant he hopes that former President Donald Trump will win in 2024. The judge disagreed that Rhodes had been locked up for politics, saying it was his actions that led to his criminal convictions. I agree with the judge. You, sir, present an ongoing threat and peril to this country and to the republic and to the very fabric of this democracy, Judge Amit Mehta said before handing down the sentence. Rhodes was convicted of seditious conspiracy in November, along with Kelly Maggs, a fellow Oath Keepers member. They won't fear us until we come with rifles in hands, Rhodes wrote in a message ahead of the January 6th attack. After the attack, in a recording that was played in court during his trial, he said his only regret was that they should have brought rifles. Some of them did bring handguns. Wearing an orange prison jumpsuit Thursday, Rhodes said he believes the only crime he committed was opposing those who are destroying our country. Mehta told Rhodes that he was found guilty of seditious conspiracy not because of your beliefs, not because you supported the other guy, not because Joe Biden is president right now, but because of the facts of the case and his actions before January, during, and after January 6th. So I think that that's true. Meggs, the other guy who was also sentenced, was actually remorseful for his actions that day. Rhodes has not been remorseful. He thinks he was right. He does think that he's part of a group that
he's
is
a
saving.
fascist. He's an American
fascist. Yeah,
that is what this is. This is an insurgency. It is a fascist movement. And you know what? Good. Throw the fucking book at him.
Yeah,
lock him up.
Yeah, I agree. I think what's interesting though is these guys are so insular. They really do believe that they are in a period of time of revolution where they are saving the republic from, all of these ills, even though what they're doing is overturning a democracy, right? It's like, yeah. And they get ever closer to just admitting that at this point. I see a lot of these guys just finally saying, yeah, screw democracy. We want to install somebody. I mean, who's the other guy on Twitter the other day? I can't think of who it was, who says,
we need a Franco. We need Franco. Yeah, you need somebody who's going to put their opponents in mass graves. Great.
It's great. Right? I mean, the Proud Boys have always been wearing the Pinochet t-shirts, so they're 100%. I do want to play Walker a video that I have, an older video of Stewart Rhodes. Let's play this video so people can get an idea of who this guy actually is. And just some background also, the Oath Keepers, I know I've talked about this on the show before, but this is a group that was started by law enforcement officers, sheriffs, constitutional sheriffs. And originally, to be a member of the Oath Keepers, you either had to be a law enforcement officer, a sheriff, whatnot, or military, one or the other. So that is who this pool is self-selecting for. But let's play this video.
What we're doing is we have men already stationed outside D.C. as a nuclear option in case they attempt to remove the president illegally. We will step in and stop it. And we're going to be there to also help secure the coming rally this Saturday and your caravan coming in. So I've got good men on the ground already. We've did a leaders recon there last week, and we're sorting out where we're going to be staging, and we'll be there. We'll be inside D.C. We'll also be on the outside of D.C. armed, prepared to go in if the president calls us out.
Armed, prepared to go in if the president calls. I mean, so I don't think it's a leap to see that these guys literally were interested in staging a coup. I just don't see that it's anything other than that. I don't. Anyway, so he got 18 years, longest sentence of any of them yet. We still obviously have more of those trials coming, so we'll keep our eye on that.
Good,
and
he's a traitor.
All right, now it's time for Right-Wing Insanity Roundup, which is always fun. I have some fun videos for this week. General Flynn is back, and he's crazier than ever. So General Flynn had a third grader on his podcast, and it was as horrifying and cringe as you can imagine it sounds. So let's play the first clip from that.
So put that mic right up to your mouth.
What's the state of Texas with the border?
Yeah. So what's the state of Texas with the border? And it's really bad right now. I think the state of Texas and the state of the border of Texas, from, I don't know, Brownsville all the way up to El Paso and then on up the Rio Grande is really bad. I mean, there's thousands and thousands of people coming across the border every day like it's an invasion. I feel like we're being invaded, and it feels that way. And I don't know if you've been down to the border. I've been down to the border a couple of times, and I believe that your Governor Abbott, could solve the border crisis in one day. He could stop the flow of illegals crossing the border of Texas from Mexico into Texas in one day. You believe me when I say that? And because he's got the resources to do it, he's got the manpower to do it. And the resources are things like, it's going to take some money, but I think the people of Texas would get behind something like that. But they already have emergency funds to do that. He's got the manpower to do it. They have the ability to mobilize. They have the laws to do it. So it's basically a border compact. So every state has its own sovereign rights. Okay, per our Constitution. You know the Constitution, right? It's a copy. I carry this around. It's a pocket Constitution. Okay.
This poor kid, right? This poor third grader is just like, invaders, sovereign nation. What are you talking about?
These people are just deranged. They live in an alternate reality.
They do. They absolutely do.
Is this grooming? Is this the grooming that I hear so much about?
Yes, that's what I call it. He's grooming a third grader, and then he went on to discuss the First Amendment, which protects lying. The thing you should be telling every third grader, right? Let's play the next clip.
Redress.
Yes.
So I'm going to read it again. You watch the words as I read, all right? So Amendment 1, and I'm speaking into your mic, so that's good. So Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof, meaning that we're not going to create some religion that's the only thing we can do, right? We can only be this or we can only be that from a religious standpoint, right? No, I do it right here. Or abridging the freedom of speech, meaning that our ability to be able to say what we want. You can even lie if you want, because that's the freedom of speech. That's not, you don't lie in a court, but you can do different things with speech, right? You don't want to have hurtful speech. You want to have positive speech. You want to have uplifting speech. You want to have a speech that matters, right? You want to make sense. But this is in the First Amendment to the Constitution of the United States of America, right?
Is he sniffing him? And I'm like, yeah, he is.
It's super uncomfortable. That is a really
it's cringy, right? It's super
moment.
Cringy, but I can't help to think that this kid's gonna run home to his mom and dad and be like, guess what? I can lie to you. The Constitution says so.
Who lets their kid do this?
I don't know.
This is way more troubling than any drag queen story hour ever.
I agree. All right. So,
but it's not as weird as the Matt Walsh baby dolls.
How did you know I was about to play Matt Walsh?
Wait, were you? But have you seen the dolls, the stuffed animals of Matt Walsh in a diaper as an infant, as like a baby with Matt Walsh's head? It's fucking weird. What the heck? I know. These are the people that are telling us that we have to be careful of trans people around kids or drag queens around. Are you fucking kidding me?
I know. All right. So Matt Walsh thinks that diversity is anti-white.
Fuck him. I don't. Fuck this guy. Yeah.
Let's play the video.
Yeah.
Well, I'm concerned too, and my concern is this: that if you still have any confusion about what these diversity initiatives actually are, well, this should clear it up. Diversity absolutely means anti-white. That's what it means. All diversity initiatives are anti-white initiatives. Anytime you hear about any kind of diversity initiative anywhere, whether it's in government, in corporations, in any institution at all, it is an anti-white initiative. Diversity is an anti-white conspiracy. And you can clip that and cut it and post it on Twitter, because I know you will, because that's what it is. And if you ever doubted it, well, here you go. Because the diversity chief at Uber tried to do one thing, okay, host one event. This was one session, as part of a series where they were talking all about diversity and all the ways that, quote unquote, people of color are victimized. And in the middle of that series, just one session, one little event where she tepidly suggested that, hey, you know, maybe we also shouldn't use racial slurs against white people. Maybe, you know, maybe we shouldn't do that. And just that one time, and she was fired for it. The black and Hispanic workers were offended. They were offended by it.
Dude, I'm offended by it. What are you even talking about? What white slurs? Cracker? Is that it? Like what? I mean, it's just hogwash. So what blows my mind about this is to suggest that anything having to do with diversity is anti-white is ridiculous. We are basically saying with diversity that we're all equal, and that yes, other folks have not been equal in the past, and we should do something to correct that. That is a good ideal. It is a good thing to do. And the fact that these guys are trying to say that this is anti-white is just so infuriating.
Let me
What a bunch of just giant crybabies, Walker. Like, I mean, really.
This is the kind of take that you have when you have no understanding of history in this country or world history. This is the kind of take that you could only have if you grew up and were indoctrinated early and never learned anything about this country's history.
I mean, any white male that thinks he's a victim is out of their mind. I mean, you guys have been at the top of the food chain since the dawn of man. like just stop.
and you know, I will say, like, there are people in this country who are white and poor. Absolutely.
Sure.
But
nobody's suggesting otherwise. That's
right.
Sort of tangential to the point, though, isn't it?
Yeah, of course. But they always bring that up, like, oh, you know, well, white people are poor too. Sure, and that's, you know, that is true. But this country has been run for and by white people since its founding.
Since it colonized.
Yeah, representation in
representation. Like it's in our DNA. Come on. Like,
you know that a testament to white supremacy, it's that when they cast a black actress to be the Little Mermaid.
Yeah, and people lose their mind.
People went fucking
that was ridiculous.
nuts. They lost their minds. They acted like it was an act of violence.
Which is nuts.
People like Matt Walsh, Ben Shapiro.
Right.
Like, it's even the acknowledgement that this country has been, that this country is and has not lived up to, is not living up to and has not lived up to its ideal as a you know,
make something of it.
Yeah. That is treated as some kind of like affront, personal affront. And it's, if you're offended by that, if you feel attacked when we point that out, then maybe you're
the problem is with you. Yeah, I don't feel attacked by they are definitely the problem. Anyway, that's just Matt Walsh being a completely incel douchebag guy.
Somebody in the comments is saying, what is white supremacy? White supremacy is a system of chattel slavery that where people, where black individuals were enslaved and owned as property, and then when there was a civil war, it's a civil war being fought over their rights, their basic rights, and then when they finally are freed, it's a system of oppression by local governments to restrict their freedoms and prevent them from building generational wealth. It's a white woman accusing a black teen in an elevator of attacking her, which sets off a massacre in Tulsa, Oklahoma. It's a white woman accusing a black teen of whistling at her, which gets him lynched in the 1960s. It's police targeting black individuals, black people in America experiencing police violence way more than white people. It's a system where consistently programs that are seen as beneficial to Black Americans are on the chopping block year after year after year after year in Washington. Yeah, white supremacy fucking exists in this country. There is no such thing as Black supremacy. It's just basic fairness. We have never made up for or even acknowledged in full our role in this, our nation's history of whites. It's oh my God. I feel like I'm losing my mind.
It's you are, because I don't believe that that's a serious question. Does that
are
really
you kidding me?
Explained?
Like, get the fuck out of here. Sorry, this is your audience, not mine. But like,
please do it for me.
Where am I getting my info from? Fucking read a book. Jesus fucking Christ.
Oh my
like, God. It's not just a class issue. It's also a race issue.
Oh, 100%. Anybody that can't acknowledge the basic facts that there has been white supremacy since the dawn of man is an idiot. I mean, that's not even worthy of debate. This person's a moronic troll.
It's police brutality.
This is just Valerie, whatever.
It's
Goodbye.
Black people getting harsher sentences for the same crimes, despite committing the offenses at roughly the same rates as white people. It's
I put her in timeout. She's just trolling.
What the fuck? Jesus
I have a lot of Nazi trolls, Walker. Welcome to my world.
I know you do, because you do good. Because you know what? You do good work. You make the right enemies.
So, all right, which moves me on to my next thing. This week, we had some neo-Nazis. So there's been an ongoing problem in Northern California with a small group up there. One guy, Ryan Masano is his name. I've chosen to ignore him because he's just a giant troll. He goes to the Vallejo City Council meetings, whatever, and he always says, racist crap, anti-Semitic crap. He's just a clown. But now he's getting some help from the NorCal Active Club, White Lives Matter group up in Northern California. These guys are much more serious. So I want to play Walker.
White Lives Matter. Oh
yeah, God. I know. I want to play a little bit of this clip. Neo-Nazis shut down Sacramento City Council. I want to play the first 30 seconds of this for folks. Anybody that wants to see the full video can go to my District 34 channel, watch it. But let's just take a look so people can see what I'm talking about.
We're going to recess for 5 minutes. We're going to recess for 10 minutes at 6:40.
In your chamber, they're doing the Nazi salute.
Engage in conduct that disturbs the orderly conduct of the meeting and are a violation of the council rules of procedure.
What's he make a fucking year? Cut his fucking wages in half and help the community.
So the Sacramento City Council pulled the plug so you couldn't see anything online. Walker, can you do me a favor? Bring up that photo that I sent as an attachment. This is a photo that was taken inside the city council chamber. This is the group in that. So you see the guy, Ryan Masano, he's the one that's been trolling the Vallejo and now Sacramento City Council now. The guy sitting next to him, his name is Jeff Perrine. He is an ex-Proud Boy, who is now getting, I guess, his Nazi feelings on because he's hanging out with these White Lives Matter guys. And then the other three are part of that NorCal Active Club group. Now, the Active Club groups we've talked about on the show before, these are like stemming from basically the Rise Above movement, the Robert Rundo group. They think that the way you like bring guys into this movement is by having, like gyms, boxing, learning how to fight, having an active, healthy lifestyle, being in the great outdoors, whatnot. It's sort of this kind of strange movement that sprung up and gained some popularity. But that's who these. Yeah, I did a piece for Daily Dot on this where they held a boxing match with Patriot Front, for example, and Nazis want to beat the shit out of each other, whatever. So that's who these guys are. So it's clearly not just the Ryan character anymore, which brings me to the next thread I want to pull up. One of these in the group has now been identified as a guy who is basically, Walker, just released from jail a couple of months ago. He was doing time, wait for it, for having all of the materials needed to make pipe bombs, instruction to make pipe bombs, discussing making pipe bombs, wanting to make pipe bombs, working on doing that, and a Nazi flag, and I kid you not. So now this guy is back out of prison, and he is doing his thing And I'm just sitting here going, so what is this guy going to do? A full Tim McVeigh at some point? He already has been looking at making pipe bombs.
Domestic terrorists.
He is 100% a domestic terrorist. Yes, I don't know what else you call this. So let's bring up the Borwin 10. This Borwin is an anti-fascist researcher. He did a great job. So I'm just going to use his thread to go through this. So on the first one, do you folks remember we talked about this a couple of weeks ago? This guy had showed up at a drag queen story hour, and he was doing Sig Heils out in front. He was by himself. In the second photo, you'll see that he was protected by the police. He went out and he went into this Chinese restaurant and hung out there in this Chinese restaurant, trying to keep himself safe, I guess, his little safe space for a while. So let's go to the second group of tweets.
He zipped his shirt before going in the restaurant? Curious. What's wrong, dude? I thought you were proud.
Yeah. So his name is Joshua Isgrig. He is from Porterville, California. He was caught with 100 pounds of bomb-making materials in 2020. Served 2 years of time. He was sentenced to 4, so he got out a little bit early, I guess. But he is in the Northern California, Porterville area. He is hanging out with these other guys. This is very scary and dangerous. Like, they've been doing banner drops over the freeway overpass, obviously embrace white pride, all the things that we've been seeing.
Look, this is nothing new. And this is what when I said earlier we're living history. I mean, this is like it's like the rise of the Klan. It's the same kind. It's rooted in the same hate.
It goes in cycles, I guess.
Anger and systemic privilege, and the perceived threat to that privilege.
Right.
That's where this is rooted.
Right. It's reactionary. Yeah,
it is.
100%. Walker, what if I told you this guy had a YouTube channel?
Oh, I would say it would be a real shame if a bunch of people went over there and bombed his mentions.
Colin, let's pull up his YouTube channel just because I think people need to see what he says in the bio. It's like, are you kidding me with this? Scroll. Yeah, there we go. What does his bio say there? Yeah, thank you. I'm a literal Nazi
and I love cats.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
I know.
It's sometimes look, there is a direct through line here from the Confederacy to like the rise of the Klan and white terror organizations after emancipation to Jim Crow, to the realignment of southern states, to police violence that we see today, and efforts to cut welfare programs. I think Lee Atwater said it laid it out pretty clearly that you don't have to say the N-word, but saying I want to cut this and I want to cut that and all these things that hurt Black people.
Absolutely.
Like, it's the same thing. You can draw a through line from that to today. It is the same hate. It's the same problem. We're dealing with the same problem. And every time there is any progress in this country, it is met with backlash. The Civil War and emancipation. Then you get black codes and you get restrictive laws. When you have the civil rights movement and you have the Civil Rights Act and the Voting Rights Act, then you get the Reagan Revolution.
Yeah.
And we had the election of the first black president, and then now here we are. Every single time there is any inch of progress, any effort,
there's a reaction,
acknowledgement, there is a reaction, and an extreme reaction, and you have violence, and you have these terrorists, white terrorists, angry white terrorists, often men. Not exclusively, but often men. And that's what this country is. That's who we are. A very candid view of America is we are a white supremacist country that has a population that is trying to break us out of it, and a population that is trying to preserve it and drag us backward.
That's a fair, you know what? That's a fair way to describe it. I always go back to that, make something of it, right? All men are created equal. Even though the founding fathers meant white male property owners, the words are still clear. All men are created equal. Make something of it. That's just sort of what I say. Make something of it. We can still do that, right? All right. So I'm going to end the show today. Colin, were there any more super chats that I missed before I do that, though? Because I got a video I want to play for you guys. I covered. Hi, Colin.
I think just one more
okay.
here.
Double K, hey, thank you, Double K. We appreciate that. You are one of our regular funders, watchers. We appreciate you, Double K. Thank you for the $19.99. Super, super appreciate it. Sorry I missed that one. I was doing too many things at once, I guess. So I want to close with a video, Walker, that I also shot this week. I went to one of the school board meetings that I knew there was going to be some extremists showing up at to, protest inclusivity. And then, typical stuff, fights were breaking out between, some of the parents there that have, kids that go to the school that they want the inclusivity to protect their children. You had some parents that were, right-wing extremists who have kids at the school, and then you have a whole bunch of people that don't have kids there that show up anyway, right? But just, it's just unfortunate that the school board meetings are turning into a place where this is becoming a regular event.
People got to start showing up at school board meetings.
Apparently they do.
Sane people who value education and the promise of equality.
I
in this
agree,
country.
because a lot of, at one point, this did make it into the video bit. I can't, really, I can't stand there and listen to people just spout off nonsense that's verifiably false anymore. And this one girl was doing exactly that. And I walk right, I've never done this before, but I turned to her and I said, you know what? You're full of shit. I'm not doing this.
Good. No, look, more people have to do that. If you see something, you got to respond to it. Same way, if you're in like a store and you see somebody defacing a pride,
right?
A clothing rack or whatever because there's rainbow stuff on it. If you see something, say something. Stand up to those people. There are more of us than there are of them.
There are more of us. You are correct.
There are
more of
so
us
many
are
more
like
of us
this.
than there are of them. They are a vocal, loud minority of people in this country.
And they're making a lot of people feel scared and uncomfortable, and I think that's the point, right? That's
they want everybody to be afraid of them because they're fucking afraid. That's the reality. They themselves are fucking terrified of the direction that of modernity. And you know what?
Equality, inclusivity, things that should not be bad words but good words that are celebrated.
Yeah, we cannot let these people intimidate us and our elected officials or businesses or wherever it is. We can't cede no ground to these people. No fucking ground.
I like feisty Walker. All right, Walker, thank you for joining me today. And for 2 weeks in a row, this has been a real treat. Appreciate it. We're going to get Alex Koch on the show. I would love to have him come on and talk about his research.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
Then, awesome. And then, so
we have a project coming up, by the way, that I'll tell you about offline.
All right.
Yeah, you'll be very interested in it.
I'll dig it. All right. And then I'm going to close with this video that I shot this week at the school board meeting. Enjoy, everybody, and have a great weekend, and enjoy your Memorial Day.
Antifa.
With your transnizing.
Yes, motherfucker. Yeah, go to total.
With your trans stars and whatnot.
You can't.
Antifa over here.
Oh, I wish you would. I wish you would, bro. I wish you would. All you Antifa clowns, you don't got the fucking balls, motherfucker.
Well, what are you even standing for if you're not standing for your own nation's children?
Think you're tough? You're not fucking tough. Punk ass bitch.
Yeah, but
fuck you.
Standing for
He's the leader of the Tahanga chapter. Huh? Gay. The gay chapter. Glass jaw bitch. Be careful, yeah. I got my eye on him. He's not gonna fuck around. If he fucks around, he's gonna find out.
It's not all this other stuff. It's honest question. If you're proud of what you're doing, why do you hide it?
Grandma, why are you going through
like
kids?
trying to be intimidating or whatever? Good question. Why do you hide your face?
You're not an Antifa media? Antifa media? Who are you? Mentally ill person. This guy. Got
this
the
guy?
pronoun clown security.
What, you gay too, man? What was that? Well, you're normal, right? You're right. Huh?
Oh, it just looks like you're defending them. That's what it looks like.
Right.
Defending
With his camera.
Pedophiles and the groomers.
I want you to give me 30
Do your
seconds so I
job.
can explain to you and your friends why we
Yeah?
are news.
Which news?
again.
Who's that? Fox? Fox?
You guys have inability.
Just making sure because you look like you're on their side, and all these people are pedophiles and groomers, and we're fighting against. Oh, you look like that upset you. Yeah, put this on there. Yeah. So let me tell you why we're here. We're here to protect the kids. We don't want pedophiles.
Alright, pure and simple. You can't make our kids gay. Simple as.
People are part of it. Yeah. I'm not a fan. I'm not a fan.
Look at Pol Pot, and Attila.
Go ahead and research this.
This is some school shooter stuff.
Are you one of those do your own research kind of guys?
I just want to read about her book, man.
All right, hey, God bless you guys. Take care. God bless your families. Yeah, there's no God. Yeah. You can say that. You believe in the negation of God. You believe in the negation of God. Yeah. You're still a faith, bro. You're still God. How are you born? You're still making a faith, bro.
I'm sorry. How was I born?
Yeah. Wait, you needed God to be born? I'm sorry. Does that make sense to you?
How are you created? Is what he's asking.
Well, a sperm needs an egg, and it's called. Yeah, exactly.
They're closer.
That is
You
bad.
can't see my.
It comes from the air, right?
Yeah, no.
It comes from the air,
because God doesn't make things from the air.
Yeah.
What is it?
Corporations made your cameras. You think you're using it to subvert the man, but you're really enabling the corporations.
You just learned those books. You projecting that everybody grooms people because they believe that.
I mean, they're lying. They're lying to parents.
Oh, they're lying to parents.
Yeah. They've institutionalized it. AR-5.
The government.
AR-5145.3.
Tinfoil hat. It's a 5G or chemtrail?
Do you understand what kids are?
I understand what kids are.
No, you don't understand.
I understand what kids are. Do you have kids? I have 2 of them that go to Glendale Unified. Do you? Do you?
Yes, we all do. That's why we're here. Yes.
Disney employee.
No wonder.
Disney employee.
Oh,
yeah, because Disney has male princesses now.
They do. I have a problem with this now.
Bro, hey, what do you
With male princesses? Yes, because princess is a...
You're wasting your breath. They're already conditioned and contaminated.
Do your kids go to Glendale Unified?
Yes. Balboa Elementary on Bel Air.
Most of these folks don't
No, I know they have
to.
I know her. How do you know? They're my friends. I know they do.
Most of these folks that are here don't have kids.
So they shouldn't be concerned about child grooming and pornography in school?
They do. You're asking me if I had kids,
But
and
how
I'm
are you-
explaining to you that I'm here because my kids go to this.
So you're
on our side or there?
agenda that they're indoctrinating. Talk to me for
I don't get it. Are you on our side or theirs?
Okay, just like one-on-one.
Can you get my good side? This is my good side. Thank you.
Hold on. Let me just talk to him for 1 second.
You can't make our kids
Mi varka, khantrumen pere.
Okay. Yeah, we do. All the kids are our children.
Okay, just
now that is the pedophile stand. You don't care.
you don't watch him.
But you don't care. That's what I'm trying to say. So do you think, do you think trans people just became a thing now, or have they always existed?
They always existed.
Okay, so what's wrong with that?
But they were not in our kids' faces.
They're not in your kids' faces.
Yes, they are. They are. Have you seen videos? Have you seen videos? They're brainwashing our kids. Stop. Enough.
People can make videos.
They can do whatever
It's
they
up to
want
you.
to do
It's
in
up to you to
their
let your
house.
kids.
But
Okay.
do not come into my child's
Obviously, I see you have a cross. I see your religion, right?
Yes, I'm a Christian.
I'm
proud Christian.
Okay, good.
Armenians don't have those boards, man. We don't have other people.
We're not gonna let you pedophiles in Glendale. I'm telling you, you guys are gonna get the fuck out of here.
I'm in Glendale right now.
Yeah, you're in Glendale. Shit.
What, you're a pedophile?
I'm in Glendale right now.
But you're a pedophile?
I'm in Glendale right now.
Is that what you're saying? We're not letting pedophiles in.
Yeah, you just said it. I fucking confirmed it. There it is.
Oh, you are.
Fucking weirdo. Look. I got you sick fuck.
You're eating cereal for breakfast, lunch, and dinner.
You sick fuck. You sick fuck. All pedophiles are
Gay and lesbian, but don't teach
There's only one way to get
Yeah, man, keep it in your own house behind
I'm just curious.
If my name is Mark and I want to go by Marcus,
yeah. Like this
what should you call me? If I introduce myself and I go, please call me this.
Do parents know that
there's people coming to this country trying to learn the language, man. You can't teach them to call a he a they. These people want to speak English, man. Calm down. All right, calm down. All right, no knives around. All right, rusty knives. All right. Hey, Tranny, no knives around, right? Hey, take it easy. Take it easy. Dorte potalı be.
Benim kavalika. Resabe.
All right, guys, okay, man. Okay,
LGBT.
You guys want to instigate. No instigating. Now, take it easy. All right. They're just mad. It's all right. They're mad that we don't want to let them make our kids. Take it easy. Conscious. Well, we're going to fight with these people. We want a real challenge. Wait. We're not fighting. Okay, no, forget about it.